03:45 a.m., January 2nd, 2026. While the Kremlin elite are likely still nursing their hangovers from New Year's Eve, two gray shadows are tearing through the darkness of western Ukraine at 650 miles per hour. They are flying at a suicidal altitude of just 200 feet, skimming the frozen treetops. In exactly 28 minutes, the lights in Moscow are going to go out. Russia thought they could darkness millions of Ukrainian civilians on New Year's Eve and get away with it. They were wrong. These two Ukrainian MiG-29s are currently inbound with a return gift that the Kremlin won't be able to ignore. Inside the lead cockpit, the 32-year-old pilot grips the stick of his Soviet-era fighter. On his heads-up display, the target coordinates glow red. Chagino, Ochakovo, and Pakhra. These are the three massive 500 kV substations that feed 1.8 million kilowatts of electricity directly into the Russian capital. If he lands it right, he will trigger a cascading grid failure that turns the city into a giant freezing refrigerator. But looking at the tactical map, the mission looks suicidal. A massive red overlay covers the route. Moscow is surrounded by the densest air defense ring on the planet. We are talking about S-400 battalions scanning the horizon, mobile Pantsir S-1 units patrolling the highway rings, and entire motorized rifle divisions guarding the outskirts with shoulder-fired MANPADS. The Russian generals think their capital is an iron fortress. The pilot knows it's just a puzzle waiting to be solved. He pushes the throttle forward, feeling the raw vibration of the twin engines kicking him in the back. The hunt is on. 3:55 a.m. The two MiG-29s are no longer flying. They are essentially threading a needle at 600 miles per hour. To survive the approach, the pilots are executing a tactic known as the Phantom Train. Instead of a direct line, they are hugging the old Soviet-era railway corridors running along the Belarus border. This is a stroke of genius. The metal tracks, the moving freight trains, and the heavy high-voltage pylons create a chaotic tunnel of radar interference, known as ground clutter. By keeping their jets below the level of the pylons, the Ukrainian pilots are physically hiding inside the electronic noise of the Russian infrastructure. To the long-range radar scanning from the east, the MiGs look like nothing more than a glitch or a fast-moving cargo train. The wingman, Shade, holds his position exactly 2 miles back, his jet tethered to the lead aircraft via an encrypted Starlink data link. They fly in total radio silence, two ghosts moving through the mist. As they cross the unseen line into Russian airspace, the lead pilot pulls the nose up. It is time to knock on the door. Decoys away, two American-made ADM-160 Maldies drop from the pylons. These aren't weapons. They are flying robots designed to lie. As soon as they clear the slipstream, their wings snap open and their small turbojet engines ignite. They immediately climb to 500 feet and activate their internal electronic warfare payloads. They begin broadcasting a radar signature 10 times their actual size. On a scope, they don't look like 300-pound drones. They look exactly like heavy, dangerous Storm Shadow cruise missiles. They scream ahead toward Moscow like a pack of wolves, daring the Russians to shoot. 4 a.m., 180 miles southwest of the Kremlin. The 92N6E Gravestone radar, the all-seeing eye of an S-400 battalion stationed near Kaluga, suddenly screams a contact warning. The screen lights up with the digital nightmare every Russian operator fears: 4 distinct high-speed cruise missile signatures boring in on the capital. The response is instantaneous and hysterical. The Russian command center doesn't hesitate to verify. They panic. The S-400 Triumph system roars to life. The launch tubes elevate vertically. With a deafening boom, a 48 N6 DM interceptor missile ejects from its canister. Its solid rocket motor ignites mid-air, instantly accelerating the beast to Mach 6. It tears into the night sky, trailing a column of liquid fire that turns the dark forest into day. Simultaneously, the inner layers of the defense grid panic. Mobile Pantsir S-1 units patrolling the M3 highway slam on their brakes, their turrets spinning wildly as they search for the threat. The elite Tamanskaya motorized rifle division, stationed on the outskirts, spills out of their barracks. Sleepy conscripts fumble with their helmets, running toward their BMP-3 armored vehicles, while officers scream orders to ready the shoulder-fired Igla-S missiles. Seconds later, the sky erupts. The S-400 interceptors find their marks. The 400-pound warheads detonate, vaporizing the two American MAL decoys in blinding flashes of orange and white. Debris rains down over the Kaluga fields. Inside the Russian command vehicle, the colonel wipes sweat from his forehead and exhales. "Targets destroyed," he reports, his voice trembling with relief. He has no idea that he just fired $4 million worth of interceptors to kill 2 flying boomboxes worth a fraction of the price. The giant is awake, he is angry, and he is looking in exactly the wrong direction. 4:05 a.m. Inside the cockpit of the lead MiG-29, Ghost watches the distant flashes of the S-400 interceptions light up the horizon like lightning. The Russian defense grid didn't just take the bait, they swallowed the hook, the line, and the sinker. To keep the party going, the pilots released the second pair of mild decoys. These robots scream upwards, deliberately flying a high, suicidal profile. The Russian S-400 battalion, panic firing now, unleashes its most expensive assets, the ultra-long-range 40 N6 missiles. Each of these interceptors costs over $2 million and is designed to kill AWACS planes at the edge of the atmosphere. Right now, they are chasing 300-pound disposable drones. It is the tactical equivalent of using a Ferrari to deliver a pizza. Expensive, flashy, and completely unnecessary. While the Russian radar screens are flooded with false positives, the 2 Ukrainian MiGs execute the pivot. They bank hard to the south, dropping from 200 feet to a heart-stopping 150 feet. They slip into the radar shadow of the Moskva River Valley, using the dense forest and the riverbanks to mask their approach. 4:08 a.m. This is the moment physics takes over. Ghost flips the master arm switch. The safety cover on the stick clicks up. The clamps release. 3 Storm Shadow cruise missiles, 2 from Ghost, 1 from Shade, drop from the pylons. The sudden loss of nearly 9,000 pounds of ordnance makes the jets jump upward, relieved of their burden. The missiles fall silently for 2 seconds before their turbojet engines ignite with a bright flash. They don't climb. Instead, they dive, leveling out just 50 feet above the ground. Their internal TERPROM systems, terrain profile matching, kick in. They aren't looking for GPS satellites, they are reading the 3D shape of the Russian Earth itself. They are deaf to jamming and invisible to radar. The sledgehammers are loose, and they are moving at 600 miles per hour toward the heart of the Russian grid. 04:12 a.m. The 3 Storm Shadows enter the kill zone, the densely defended ring of steel surrounding Moscow. The Russian Electronic Warfare Directorate finally realizes that something is wrong. The Krasuka 4 jamming stations surge to maximum output, blasting enough noise to scramble every GPS receiver from Tula to the Kremlin. But the Storm Shadows don't care. These missiles are navigating using TERPROM, terrain profile matching. They are literally reading the contours of the ground below them, comparing the hills and valleys to a stored 3D map. It is the navigation equivalent of a blind man running through his own house. He doesn't need to see because he knows exactly where the furniture is. The jamming is useless. However, heat is something you can't hide. A mobile Pantsir S1 unit parked on the shoulder of the M3 highway near Ochakovo catches a fleeting thermal signature. The operator screams a warning. The turret spins. The twin 30mm cannons roar to life, spewing a wall of high-explosive tungsten into the path of the missiles. Ghost and Shade, watching the telemetry from a safe distance, see the threat. Engage countermeasures! The Storm Shadows execute a pre-programmed evasion maneuver. They bank hard left, pulling Gs that would crush a human pilot while simultaneously dispensing a cloud of chaff and flares. The distraction works. Barely. The Pantsir's fire control radar locks onto the blooming cloud of aluminum foil. But the chaos has a cost. The maneuver forces the missiles up, momentarily exposing them to the naked eye. Down on the highway, the Russian motorized infantry of the Tamanskaya division looks up. They see 3 dark shapes streaking across the moonlit sky. Missiles, low altitude! A dozen soldiers shoulder their Igla-S MANPADS tubes. The seeker heads growl as they lock onto the engine heat. They pull the triggers. A web of white smoke trails races into the sky. It is a desperate, uncoordinated volley. But the Storm Shadows are already gone, dipping back down into the tree line, leaving the Russian missiles to chase empty air and explode harmlessly against the clouds. To ensure the final mile is clear, Shade plays the last card. He releases a final singular male decoy programmed with a Phantom Escort profile. It loops back, flying erratic circles directly over the Pantsir battery, screaming electronically like a banshee. The Russian gunners, terrified and confused, slew their guns away from the real threat to engage the ghosts circling above their heads. The path to the substations is wide open. 04:13 a.m., 8 minutes to impact. The atmosphere inside the Russian National Defense Control Center fractures into absolute white-knuckle panic. The thermal cameras guarding the outer perimeter of the Chagino substation finally pierce the dark, resolving the terrifying reality. These aren't decoys. The screens show 3 distinct heat signatures flying lower than the power lines, closing the distance at Mach 0.8. The realization hits the command staff like a physical blow. The Iron Dome over Moscow has failed. The chaos spills instantly from the bunker to the streets. On the Kievskoye highway, traffic grinds to a halt as the heavy trucks of the Tamanskaya Motorized Rifle Division tear down the shoulder, sirens wailing. Panic takes over discipline. Soldiers leap out of BMPs, raising assault rifles and MANPADS to the sky in a desperate, uncoordinated attempt to engage the threat. They unleash a wall of lead and tracers into the night, a futile curtain of fire trying to catch supersonic shadows that are already miles past them. The Storm Shadows weave through the flak with robotic indifference, their navigation computers fixated solely on the target coordinates. High above the western exurbs, the danger for the Ukrainian pilots reaches its peak. The amber low fuel lights flicker on the dashboard, casting a grim glow over the cockpit. Worse, the tactical data link flashes a lethal warning. 2 Su-57 Felon stealth fighters have just lifted off from Kubinka Air Base on full afterburner, hunting for the intruders. This is the moment of maximum exposure. The Ukrainian pilots execute the ghost escape maneuver. Simultaneously, they chop the throttles to idle and deploy the air brakes. The violent deceleration throws them forward against their harnesses as the jets drop from 600 miles per hour to a loitering speed of 400. They dive, pushing the nose down until the radar altimeter screams, hugging the absolute floor of the Moskva River Valley. By killing their speed and burying themselves in the ground clutter, they vanish from the Doppler radar of the hunting Su-57s, which fly right over them, scanning for fast-moving targets that are no longer there. Behind them, the 3 missiles pitch up for their terminal dive. The target, the beating heart of Moscow's power grid, fills the infrared seeker's field of view. The countdown hits 0. There is nothing left to stop them. At 04:21 a.m., the physics of destruction arrive in Moscow. The first Storm Shadow missile slams into the primary transformer block of the Chagino substation at Mach 0.8. The British-designed Broach warhead executes its 2-stage lethality with terrifying precision. The precursor charge detonates first, punching a clean hole through the outer steel casing and the ceramic insulators. Milliseconds later, the 990-pound main penetrator follows through the breach and detonates inside the core. The explosion isn't just a bang, it is a thermal event. The blast wave, moving at 26,000 feet per second, instantly ruptures the massive cooling tanks, releasing 50,000 gallons of superheated mineral oil. This mist ignites instantly, but the real destruction comes from the electricity itself. As the internal structures vaporize, the 500,000-volt current arcs through the ionized air. This creates an arc flash reaching temperatures of 35,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 times hotter than the surface of the sun. The massive copper bus bars don't just melt, they evaporate. The substation turns into a towering volcano of blue-white electric fire and black oil smoke, rising 200 feet into the night sky. Seconds later, the Ochakovo and Pakhra substations suffer identical fates. The synchronized strikes shatter the fragile equilibrium of the Moscow power ring. The grid protection systems try to compensate, rerouting the massive load to surviving nodes, but the surge is too violent. Circuit breakers trip in a cascading failure that races across the city faster than a heartbeat. The lights in Moscow go out. The strategic fallout is immediate and humiliating. Moscow has lost over 50% of its high-voltage transmission capacity. The Kremlin, which just 48 hours ago boasted about freezing Ukraine, is now scrambling to reroute power from as far away as Siberia to keep its own capital from freezing. The estimated repair bill for the 3 substations exceeds $800 million, but the cost to Russian morale is incalculable. The illusion of safety provided by their dense air defense network has been shattered by 2 old jets and 3 smart missiles. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles to the west, the escape is complete. Having slipped under the radar of the scrambling Su-57s, the 2 Ukrainian MiGs reappear over the friendly skies of Belarus. They rendezvous with a waiting Il-78 tanker flying a clandestine track, topping off their tanks in silence before crossing the border back into Ukraine. After 45 minutes of high-stakes cat-and-mouse, the landing gear touches the tarmac. The pilots taxi to their hardened shelters, shutting down the engines that just carried them through the most heavily defended airspace on Earth. Moscow wanted a cold winter for their neighbors. They got one for themselves. Happy Dark New Year, Moscow. Next time, remember to leave the lights on when you celebrate. Bye for now.